Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fishhead Creations podcast, where I pull out one of my interesting knitting projects every time and talk you through the details. My name is Anna. You can find me on Ravelry as Obsti and on Instagram as Caledoniana, and there's also a Ravelry group for this podcast in the groups tab under Fishhead Creations. That was a bad sentence, I apologize. There is a Fishhead Creations podcast group on Ravelry, which you can find by searching for Fishhead Creations under the groups tab there. I will link to everything I just mentioned down below, and I will go back to mentioning it at the end of the podcast next week, because that seems to be my rhythm and I seem to mess it up if I do it any differently. Whatever. Welcome back to any returning viewers. It's wonderful to have you back here. And it's wonderful to see the subscriber numbers rising, because we are getting closer and closer to 100 subscribers, which means we are getting closer to the giveaway. I just pulled these out again because I wanted to remind you that the wonderful Patricia P4Chan has given me a little set of some stitch markers, a progress keeper, and this little brooch, all the same folk motif of dancing people, to give away, and I'm holding on to this set until we reach 100 subscribers. So if you're interested in winning this little set and maybe a thing or two I might throw in there, please head over to the subscribe button and hit that one. As soon as we reach 100 subscribers, I will hold a giveaway, probably in the Ravelry group, just because it's the easiest way for me to do so. But we shall see. We are at 78 subscribers last time I checked, so we are getting close. Spread the word, please. Also, if you are on Ravelry, you might have seen that I released my Christmas patterns last week, which were a pair of socks and the matching wrist warmers. And especially the socks have been received so well, so thank you very much for it. If you are taking part in the festive sock along by Amy Florence, or just simply knitting for the holidays for yourselves, it might be worth having a look at this pattern, because they seem to go quite quickly. Someone has already finished a pair of them, which is absolutely exciting, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more versions of these. They are not as versatile as other patterns color-wise, just because, well, it's little hollies, and they do work best in the original color scheme, but I think it's quite a traditionally festive thing to knit in, well, green, red and white, or light grey in this case. And they are just so cute and engaging with the texture pattern. And as you can see, as I'm sharing now, because I didn't do it in the pattern photos where I tried to conceal it, I totally messed up the length of the leg. It's a 6-row repeat, I think. And apparently I cannot count to 8, because I thought I did 8 repeats on the leg of the texture pattern on both, but on one I only did 7. Which I realized after I finished the second sock, so I'm not going back and re-knitting them or anything. I will not do that. Also, it was a nightmare. I knit these in July. It was a nightmare and absolutely impossible to find dark green sock yarn in July. It's still hard now that the fall and winter colors are in, but it was absolutely incredibly impossible in July. It took me, I think, 2 months of searching everywhere for dark green solid colored sock yarn. So go ahead, buy it now if you need it for anything. And yeah, I did the same pattern on some cute little wrist warmers, which I probably will rarely wear because I knit my sweaters with very long sleeves anyway, but they're cute, they're quick, they're fun little gifts. So yeah, happy holidays, they are both called. Holly written as the holly berries on them. And they are, for now and at least until the end of the year, they will be free. If I figure out how to register a small business and all that bureaucratic shenanigans, they may be paid for going forward from January 1st. Or some point in the next year, but for now they are free, they are on Ravelry. I will link to them below, or at least to my design page where you can find everything I've published so far. So, well, that was convenient. Returning viewers might know that my camera can only film in 5-minute increments, so I have to restart the filming of the segments every time. and I just managed my introduction in 5 minutes. So I'm really proud of myself. I hope you are too, and I hope you are not too bored because I haven't started talking about today's project. But it will be a quite quick talk about it, so I needed to blow up my content a little. Also, before we get to today's project, I know, weird tensions ahead. I didn't have enough caffeine and my shoulder hurts like nobody's business because I went to my physiotherapist yesterday and she was just completely incredulous, let's say, at how hard and overtensioned a shoulder can be. So it hurts. It hurts. But what I'm wearing today my Marius, which is by Insane Dale. It's a very traditional and very well-known Norwegian pattern, and what I did with this one is I knit the bottom, which is not traditional, in red because I ran out of the dark grey. I did a podcast episode way back when I just started out doing this, about this sweater, and I never wore it again, I think. And I will try to stand up and show you. I have no idea how much you can see, but let's see. So, potentially you can see now that this is what my sweater looks like at the bottom. I actually think it's quite flattering, because the color change between, goodness me, the color change between red and grey happens very close to my natural waist, and I did a bit of color work which cinches it in at that point. So yeah, I'm actually quite okay with how it looks, and usually you don't see the bottom anyway, because it's one of the sweaters I mainly wear at home or outside when it's really cold with a coat over, because it's knit in Sandnes Pegint, which is a very dense, heavyweight worsted span, 100% non-superwash wool. It is warm, and I'm wearing it now because I refuse to close my windows all day, at least not all of them, and it's 11 degrees Celsius outside. So I need something warm, but I want fresh air and want ventilation in here. I put off turning on the heating and closing the windows all day as long as I can, and it's not yet mid-October, so no. Just no. So, with that, let's get into today's actual project, which is something you may have seen if you've been around on the internet. This is obviously Fern and Feather by Jen Steingas. Kind of. I pretty much only used the chart, as I do, and did everything else on my own. So I used the chart and the overall stitch count at the bottom of the yoke. That's it. Fern and Feather, as it is written, is knit from the top down. I have no idea what yarn Jen Steingas uses, but it's knit at a 18 stitch gauge, I think. Yeah, has to be, because, yeah. So 18 stitch per 10 centimeter gauge. It's usually a top down sweater, and I have no idea which yarn. I kept the 18 stitch gauge. I used Drops Lima, which is a wool alpaca blend, which I really like. I have knit quite a few sweaters in it, but so far only had one of them for myself, because the first colorwork sweater I ever did, I did in this yarn, and my mom just took it away from me. She just annoyed me for weeks and months and talked me into giving up the sweater, and then she paid for the yarn for the next one I wanted to knit, so that was quite okay. But yeah, that one I didn't keep. And then I knit 3 sweaters in this yarn for friends who were knit worthy enough to deserve a sweater. And I had one Aftur by Vedisjon Sortir, which I kept for myself, but I really wanted another one because they are so just soft and warm and nice and snuggly, and I wanted one. So that's what I used, and a friend called it very gothic when I told her of my color choice. So yeah, I was channeling my inner goth when I decided on the colors for these. I really like this light heather purple, although it is quite out of my comfort zone, but everything's fine as long as enough black goes with it. So yeah, I still really do like this. It's not a color I would wear overall, strange noises. But as a contrast color in color work, I'm quite happy with it. So what did I do? What I always do, I knit bottom up. I did 1 by 1 rib at the bottom. I did waist shaping, although you cannot see it very well. It is there. Very slight, subtle waist shaping, but there are a few decreases at the bottom and a few increases at the top. I did sleeves, 1 by 1 rib, increasing until I had the stitch count the pattern called for at the underarm. I did them really long. I think they are 52 centimeters long, and I could have gotten away with 2 centimeters fewer, shorter, because they really do cover my hands up to here, which I like if I'm not using my hands. So I constantly push up the sleeves on this, and I think I really need to go back to doing the sleeves about this length. I would like these to be, well, up to here. That's pretty much my perfect sleeve length. And recently I've done sleeves that really cover the ring I'm wearing, and that's just slightly too long. So I need to go back to either very long ribbed cuffs that I can cuff over at every length easily, as I did with Birkin and Rapunzel, or I need to knit slightly shorter sleeves, because on this sweater they are slightly too long. They are lovely, they are slightly too long. The body as well is rather long for what I'm usually doing, so it just covers my upper hip. Usually try to knit my sweaters to a length that they just rest on top of my hip, but this one's slightly longer, which for a very warm sweater I think it's okay, because this one will mainly be worn when it's really cold, and then I want my back especially and my kidneys covered and warm, so that's fine. I did flip it around pretty much the same way I did with Birkin, so I looked at the stitch count at the underarm, which I needed to have, and the stitches that you cast on when knitting top down, I just had included in the stitch count and then put away on hold to Kitchener close later at the underarm. Then I measured my row gauge on the body, because I had already done so much, and figured out how many centimeters I needed to knit before I started the yoke or the color work. So I think it was about 5 centimeters of just plain with no decreases, because I knew I wanted a yoke depth of somewhere between 21 and 23 centimeters. So I just figured out how many rows I would need to put in between. So I think, yeah, the color work in itself had so many rows that it gave me, I think, about 18, probably 17 to 18 centimeters of depth. And I do not usually count the ribbing, because that sits straight up and doesn't add to the depth. So I needed about 5 centimeters of plain knitting before I started the chart and the decreases, which I did. So whenever a row had an increase in the chart, for me that meant on the next row I had to decrease, because on the next row there were fewer stitches in the chart. It's a lot easier to do if you just do it than it is to talk about it. So yeah, flipping a chart around is really pretty easy, especially if it's a short, simple repeat as this one. I think it worked quite well. You cannot really see any difference between this pattern knit in the other direction, and I actually think it works better knit bottom up, because it gives you a straighter the tips of those, whatever they are, ferns. They are pointier because it's the V of the knit stitch. The tips of these whatever ferns they are, it's actually pointier if you knit it bottom up, because the V of the knit stitch goes in the opposite direction and points down, which actually I think looks better than it does top down, because knitting top down you would have this double point on these ferns, and I think I prefer it this way. And I prefer knitting bottom up anyway, so that was out of the question. So yeah, what else? I have no idea what kind of short row shaping was in the pattern. I just did my usual three or four sets of short rows at the back, so it is slightly raised, and then I did 1 by 1 rib. I think the pattern originally had a rolled neck, maybe, I think, but I didn't like that, so I went with this. That's it. It's not a very exciting knit, it's a fun knit. It went incredibly fast. It took me 3 days. I still have no idea how I did it. I have never knit a sweater in 3 days before that, and I don't plan to do it again because it really hurt my shoulders and neck. But I was stress knitting a lot, and it did help getting the stress out of my system to put it into this knit. So for some reason I expected to not actually like the finished product because I knit so much stress into it, but for some reason it was really freeing and it lifted a weight from me to just put my stress into this garment, and I do enjoy wearing it. I'm sorry, I'm waving it at you all the time. So yeah, 3 days, my quickest sweater so far. That wasn't a baby sweater, and I think for most baby sweaters I took longer because I get bored and the sleeves are so fiddly. I do recommend this pattern. It's a fun, quick thing to do. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say about it. I may just take a little video of the cats because they are asleep over in the other chair and I don't want to wake them, but they are just so cute over there. You have to see them, and I might as well go back to my old tradition of just adding a little video of them at the end of the video. So yeah, I hope you couldn't hear any wailing noises. If so, that's because the werewolves upstairs decided today was a day to have a crying fit, and they are doing construction work outside again, as they always do when I'm recording, and the wind is also, well, yeah, it has slowed down now, but it was flipping around on the doors earlier. So yeah, goodness. The werewolves are getting at it again, so I will end this here. Thank you so much for watching. Links to all I have talked about will be down below, and I will be with you next week. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye!